Welcome to the Insurance Producers Podcast, where we bring you the top personalized producers, insurance agents, and industry partners, giving you at least 3 takeaways to 10x your production and build your multi-million-dollar revenue books. So sit back, relax, and become inspired by the success stories and strategies of the world's top insurance minds. Let's roll.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Insurance Producers Podcast. I am your host, Cyrus Jaffery. Man, I'm super excited today. Man, CJ, people call me CJ. CJ meets CJ for the first time on a virtual level, man. Dude, CJ Hutsenpiller, I don't think, if you don't know CJ, you're living in a rock. CJ, man, what is happening?
Dude, just living the dream over here. I think I'm getting a little similar weather to what you're getting there in Nebraska, and having all the fun dodging tornadoes and hail and trampolines that are flying through the air, all the things.
Somebody was like, "Hey, I see why Progressive does not want trampolines because they fly everywhere."
They're the state bird of some of our cities. You know, we gotta watch out and don't get clipped by a flying trampoline or anything like that. But yeah, man, it's good. You know, other than the crazy weather and apparently the market's hard too, I guess.
What hard? CJ, so when people that don't know you, man, tell us just quick background, where you're at, how's the agency formed, and how you got into it.
Sure. Yeah. So I got into insurance. I jokingly tell people, so I'm a second generation insurance agent. My mother started our agency back in 1992. And one of the requirements to be in our family is you have an insurance license. If not, we will kick you out immediately upon you turning 18 if you don't get your insurance license. So I got my insurance license when I was 18. Jumped into the agency full time when I was 20. So been doing it ever since. So that was like 2008. Since then, we've grown a little bit. Been blessed to have actually purchased that agency for my mom. I always tell the joke of I purchased the agency for mom. She bought a house on the beach, bought a house in the mountains, and I hadn't seen her since. Good for her. So that's cool thing for me. When you've got family in the business. Our agency is just outside Nashville, Tennessee. We're in a town called Mount Juliet. We got 16 team members, some of which are in office, some of which are hybrid. And man, we're just trying to grow as much as we can, as fast as we can. We're about a 90-10 split on personal lines versus commercial. So we hang out where everybody else says you can't make money. So that's my favorite space to play in.
Let me hold my beer.
Right. Hold on. Wait, watch. I got you. Yeah, for sure.
Love it. Same exact agencies, man. So this is going to be a fun conversation. We're personalized 90-10 as well. So yeah, man. So I guess let's just talk right there, man. Personalized is at a tough spot, right? Like, so a lot of people understand that insurance is at a tough spot, weather patterns, blah, 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 COVID, all that stuff. We know the drill. Carrier, I would say carrier is probably my biggest headache right now, is just dealing with carriers right now. So yeah, what are some things you're hearing, and how are you presenting that to your team? You don't want to go to your team saying, "Oh man, like the sky's falling." It's not falling. We understand that, right? Like, how do you give them enough knowledge so they understand that there's something going on, but not to a point to where like you're frustrating them or angering them, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think one thing that my agency has done pretty well is I don't typically hire new agents. So most of my agents all have some tenure on them, meaning that they've seen the fluctuations in the markets and things change. The difference that we're running in right now, with I think what most agents haven't seen before is that all these carriers are doing their underwriting tightening at the same time, right? It's happened for years and years where you'll have carrier 1 go through it, and then maybe carrier 2, carrier 3, and you kind of go through these cycles. This is the first time that you've seen it where they're all doing it kind of at the same time. But I just educate my team of like, look, this is normal. This will not be the new normal. This is a season, and you just have to keep grinding, get through that season, and when you come out the other side, you're going to be better for it.
Yep, 100%. So you do believe in communication with the team and being honest with them and kind of teaching them and obviously telling them about what's happening.
Oh yeah, 100%, because they need to be able to articulate what's going on to the end consumer, right? And so making sure that they are up to speed on all the things that are going on. They understand the economics of it. They need to be able to do that in order to explain that to the customer, right? So that I truly believe that's super important. Make sure you have a really educated team. I'm one of those agents that I don't hire people that just can sell a policy. Like I need them to be able to sell the value of the policy. And part of that value is understanding what goes into that pricing. And part of that is understanding the market.
100%. 100%. So what about the carrier side of things, man?
Sure.
How is that relationship look like? I know a lot of producers listening are probably not directly talking to carriers, but there's a lot of agents listening. What are your conversations with the carriers? What's that relationship like? Has it changed in the last year?
Yeah, so I think at least for me, one of the things that I've always valued is like that carrier relationship. If it's a marketing rep or whatever they have that comes to your office, that relationship is super important. And I think there's a lot of agents out there that don't take that relationship seriously, or they kind of take advantage of that relationship. For me, I'm always trying to make sure that we are being a partner with our carriers and not just pushing policies through there. And so what that ends up happening is as stuff is changing now, or has been changing, we know about it, are more educated on it because we typically will get information before they would tell Joe Schmo agency. And then also anytime that there's opportunity, a lot of times they're gonna help you out. But I'm a big believer in this. I think there's a lot of agents out there that ask the world of carriers and don't reciprocate it. What I mean by that is like when you have a carrier that that you're trying to write some business with, and for whatever reason you're just not writing with them, for you to ask like huge favors of that carrier that you're not even writing policies for is like a huge mistake. And I think you burn that bridge with the carrier. I use Progressive as an example. I don't know, do you guys have Progressive, Cyrus?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So
Yep.
let me tell you one thing. Progressive, I'm involved in a lot of the Facebook groups, and like Progressive is one of the most hated on carriers in a lot of the groups. Right? Like they get hated on all the time. And for me, that is they're an asset. But they're only an asset because we've created a relationship. We give them volume, and therefore they turn around and they help us out where they can. But it's these agencies that just they sell one policy a month with them, and then something happens on a claim. Progressive wouldn't make an exception for them, and now all of a sudden they're the devil. Well, it's not that. It's that you as an agent haven't really been building that relationship over time. So those relationships with carriers are critical.
Yeah, I've always said, man, Progressive is a data company. So
yeah, 100%.
100%. They're the only carrier that last year made money. Like literally, like it's like they know how to make money. And it's funny because Progressive. I'm actually leaving on Monday to go to a Progressive event in Boston to meet some of them, and one of the things that I'm excited about, man, is to just kind of like look at them in the eye and say, dude, like, can you please teach other carriers on what you're doing? Like if like they don't even have underwriters, right? Like their data, their technology is so strong that they will find everything that you need to know inside of a policy. So when they come to you and tell you, hey, this person is going to have an accident in the next 30 days, that usually freaking happens.
Yep. And it creates some weird underwriting guidelines. I don't know if it's that way in other states, but like here in Tennessee, I think the weirdest underwriting guidelines you'll ever find is on the auto side. Progressive won't write a household that has 2 or more not at fault accidents in the state of Tennessee. Ooh. That is a kick out question. Now, you could have 3 at faults, 4 at faults even, really, but 2 not at faults. And you're out, and everybody's like, "Wow, that's such a weird thing." I'm like, "Look, guys, they have data. Like that's the way that they've built this business. That's the way that they're able to sustain, through these times or whatever. Pay attention to what they do because they probably are setting the trend. I guess is what I always try to explain to my team. But that's just one example of a carrier. But that's one that I think resonates because they're in most agents' office that are independent.
Yeah, I don't know why, man. There are some things that they do that sometimes I'm like, do you really need to go that far? But as I look back and I'm like, man, like about 6 months later, you're like, oh, I see why they were doing that. Like they're just ahead of the game. They're just ahead of the game. That's kind of bottom line.
My favorite one is, and we'll maybe this will help an agent out on this podcast. My favorite post that I ever see in any of the Facebook groups is I quoted my customer with Progressive, and they went online and got a different price. Progressive is trying to screw the agent, and I'm always like, guys, y'all have to understand, those aren't even, they're different insurance companies. They're under the Progressive umbrella, but they're completely separate companies. The online market is going to rate better on some risk. You as an agent are gonna rate better on some risk, but like trying to write off an entire carrier because they weren't competitive, or online beat you on one. If somebody shopped, and I'm just truth bomb here, Cyrus. If you were shopping somebody's insurance and they shopped you online against Progressive, you aren't doing your job as an agent. You should have been providing enough value that they never went online in the first place. Personally, that's a CJ thing. But anyway, I see that kind of stuff happen. But it's just a different company, man. They got to understand.
No, 100%, man. 100%. Yeah, man. One of my biggest recommendations always is, hey, carriers, man, those got to be your best friends because they're going to come back with incentives again, man. They're going to give you extra points at one point. Like this is not like the worst thing you can do in this time is to burn bridges with those carrier reps because they're not giving you this or that. And you're just kind of hating on them and whatever, right? Dude, you cannot do that because things are going to turn 2 years from now. You're going to ask for those extra points that they're maybe given to other agencies and they're going to come back, man. They're going to give you incentives. And some carriers are actually, I've seen in the last like 2 to 3 months, they're opened up a little bit. They're coming up with some new incentives. It's starting to turn around. I feel like we're in the third quarter of this crazy world. Like, do you agree or do you agree or disagree with that?
Absolutely. I think we're on the other side of it. I kind of feel like, carriers are doing more stuff, Progressive, their profit sharing programs roll back out. We've got other carriers that are, offering incentive trips. I actually turned down a trip to Ireland this year. Fun fact. Because I don't fly. I hate flying.
What?
I know, pet peeve of mine, flying. I hate it. Can't stand it. I won a trip to Ireland with one of my carriers and I passed on it.
Wow.
But that said, that kind of stuff is happening again, right? Like we're getting carriers that are offering incentives. They're offering, bonus points on commission for new business, that kind of stuff. So I think we're on the downhill side of it at least.
Absolutely. Hey man, CJ, if you don't want to take it, the other CJ will take that Ireland trip from you, bro.
So, I tried to even give it to my team. They wouldn't let me do it. They wouldn't let me take the cash out. I was kind of frustrated with how they handled it because I was just like, hey, I'll just get a team member to go. Now agency principals only, and I was like, well, that's kind of unfair. Yeah. So trust me, there was a line of people with you ready to take it.
That's funny, man. Okay, so this is a producers podcast, man. Tell me a little bit about your producers, man. What's the dynamic look like? How many producers do you have that are writing business right now?
Yeah, so two things that will stand out about my agency that are a little different, probably from most. One, to answer that first question, I have 10 licensed sales team members. They do not all produce. Some of them have other roles here. I would say probably 6 or 7 of them are writing every single day. But from that, the other dynamic in our agency is I have a very young team, and not young in the fact of in age, but or young in age, but not in experience. I guess is what I'm trying to say there. So I think my youngest agent, outside of one that just got licensed, because she kind of skews my numbers pretty hard one direction. But I think outside of that, I don't have anybody that's been in the business less than 5 years. So I got a very tenured team, but I am 35 years old and I'm the oldest team member that we have. Yeah. So cool dynamic. They're split up, sales and service. I got people that do service. I got people that do the sales, and they kind of meet in the middle to make sure that our customers are getting good client experiences. And the reason that I go younger typically on agents, and it's not intentional. If I found somebody that it's a computer thing. You have to be good on a computer. That's a skill set that is not going away. It's got you. If we do a typing test, you got to be able to hit at least 65 words a minute. On a typing test, things like that. And not because I never need you to type, but it just overall tells me how good is this person with a computer. And so that's for me is one of the big things. So I look for, insurance experience. I want to make sure I'm getting young agents that are good on a computer that have been in the business for a little bit of time to fully understand kind of what's going on.
So your team dynamic, younger, right? So that's crazy, man. 35 years old as well. One thing we do is our slogan is culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I know a little bit about you. I know your team dynamics because I follow you on social media. You're big on team culture. You're built on camaraderie. You're built on personal development. What are some things you guys are doing inside of your organization, man, to kind of keep that culture going? Because insurance is known for this. I was just with a person at a podcast, and this guy was like 22, 23 years old, having a lot of success. He's like, I thought insurance was like for 60-year-olds. Like, I didn't think I wanted to go into this industry, but I come in and now I'm having so much fun. So tell us a little bit about what are some things you're doing, man, to make insurance sexy again?
Well, I don't know if it's sexy again, but we're trying, right? A couple things. For me, it's really more of like a recruiting strategy than anything. There are a lot of agencies out there that have young talent within them, right? And what I was seeing is like, if I look around the industry, that this young talent that's in the industry is like being pushed out by I would call it the old school practices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Making a 27-year-old come in and do filing, like stuff like that. like just doesn't make a lot of sense. So for us, as we built our team, that was something that we looked for is old school agencies that had young team members, because we knew that hey, once they get a glimpse of what we offer here, we're going to be it's not even going to be a conversation, right? Like they're going to come over. So it became a recruiting thing. And then as far as the culture is concerned, it all starts with how you build the team and the people you build the team with. I am a big believer in team first and in all things. So every person on my team was hired by the team. We do everything collectively. So when we interview people to come work here, we have certain people that are on those job interviews. We do group interviews with my team. And basically, if anybody thinks that it's not a good fit, the person's out. And so what that allows us to do is we really build this culture of like, hey, this isn't, John Smith over here that got hired and nobody likes him. If he got hired, it's the entire team's problem. and I structure it that way. What that kind of creates is like this family dynamic that everybody kind of has responsibility of like, okay, well, I need to make sure that John Smith is succeeding because I was part of the reason that he has this, right? And so we built that. And then as far as our office space, we kind of rethought what that looks like as well. We don't have your traditional insurance office. Couple things, all of my team members are hybrid. Meaning that they hybrid or work from home. So they're either in the office 2 days and then out 3, or they're completely work from home. With that, we took our office space and we're actually in an apartment complex. The apartment complex is like really high end apartments, but with that, on site here we have a coffee shop. We have a pool, we have a rooftop wine bar, we have all these, different like cool little niche things, a gym, fitness center, all the things. And so what we were able to do is by putting us in this space, we're surrounded by this young culture, right? And it kind of helps us build that vibe. And then, as you're in our office, like, my team can step out and they go to the coffee shop, or they can run upstairs, or they can do whatever. And it just really creates kind of a different feel. So you've got a younger team and a younger kind of scene, if you will, and it kind of helps us build from there. Does that make sense?
Well, 100%.
I did a lot of talking there.
No, dude. No, that was great, man. Because at the end of the day, what we do on a daily basis, I tell our team all the time, guys, like, this is a very stressful job. Like, really, man, like, sales is a stressful job. Going through a tornado claim, hail claim, what the customer experience team does is a very stressful job. So the best thing you can do is create an environment where they come in and they feel comfortable. They feel happy. They're like, oh, cool, man. Like, I want to go to work. And then, yeah, the work is tough, but then I work with such amazing people that, like, it's fun to go talk to them, and they empower me. They make me better and all of that. We read one book a month, and like, it's all about personal development and the gym. And right now we're doing like this like weight loss thing, not really a weight loss thing, but like it's more like a team dynamics of how to get your diet and stuff. And it's a combination of a bunch of things just to put a little bit of competition in outside of work. So it's not all about work. We almost look at ourselves as like a startup tech company. It's why we like run our company, because people want to work for people like that. People don't want to work for an insurance agent that's been around for 30 years, going to sit in your office and cold call a bunch of people. I think those days are gone.
Slap your desk with his ruler, across the thing. Yeah.
Dude, I had a couple of agents that worked for me that worked for the last lady that we obviously can't name. This lady threw pens at them. When she was like looking at them not doing stuff right, she would chuck a pen from her office all the way to their account managers, like literally throw it at them, and it would hit them and be like, get to work.
That's an EPLI claim waiting to happen, right?
Dude, that's how, like, I couldn't believe some of the things that people have to do. But anyways, so young dynamic team, man, knocking out of the park. This is a very big topic right now, the virtual thing, right? Like, so companies like your company, companies like us, where we kind of control data, like, I know what you're doing on a daily basis. Like, I don't need to babysit you. If I have to babysit you, then you just can't work in our office.
Hired the wrong person.
That you definitely hired the wrong person. So what are some things you're doing that you would recommend to agents who are watching, or producers who are watching other producers, to somewhat keep them? How do you keep them accountable to hit their stuff when they're virtual?
Yeah. So couple things there. I think the first thing that I really like to drive home with people is like, let's use Nebraska as an example, right? Yeah. Even Tennessee, either one of those. At some point, you're going to run through the talent pool in your area, right? So if you are not utilizing virtual team members, you can never have the best team that you could possibly build. And the reason for that is simply because a lot of times we don't necessarily hire for the best person we could find. We hire that, oh, hey, this is the best person that's conveniently located enough that will drive to my office. Right. And so agencies that are, especially people that are like in the rural areas, that becomes a really big problem, for them, the recruiting. So first thing I would say is virtual employees absolutely need to be on your radar. And when I say virtual, like, it doesn't mean that they're overseas somewhere. Mm-hmm. A lot of my team members are in other parts of Tennessee that, they're 3-4 hours away from our office, but they're fantastic agents. I want them on my team. So that's the first thing. And then from there, I think as agency owners, one thing that we've always done historically poorly, and you kind of talked about the data, is that a lot of agencies don't understand the numbers within their agency of like, what are they actually tracking, right? Like, hey, nobody reached out to me to complain, so my CSR must be doing a good job. Right? That's literally the metric they use. And that's not it. So the way that we do it is that we have different metrics that they have to hit. So as an example, email response times have to be under an hour, right? And we have systems involved to make sure that happens. Ticket times, which is what we would consider like a full task. So like if you've got, a car change would be a ticket, or a mortgage change, or whatever, all that falls under tickets. There are steps that have to be followed for those tickets, timeline metrics that have to happen. And we track all of that, which allows us to back into, hey, is this person doing a good job? Mm-hmm. My team looks at it like this. I don't care if you're sitting in the office or you're at home. If you hit your numbers, we're done. Like, you're never going to say one thing to you, right? Because if you want extra time off, any of that stuff, who am I to say you can't have it when you're doing your job and doing it well? But on the flip side of that, I can also see when things aren't happening, things that aren't going well, and we can either address them, fix them, or figure out that we've got a bigger problem to solve there. So, and then same thing on the sales side. You deal with that on the producing side of, okay, there's a revenue number that needs to be hit. Sure, great. But there's also like within that of like, all right, what is your lead contact time? Like, all right, lead comes in, how long until you contacted them? How's your follow-up look? Like, what does that look like? And on and on. And so you put all that together, and that allows you to actually understand what's going on in your agency, and allows you to make smart decisions rather than like gut-based decisions.
Dude, like, that's literally how every like tech company runs their organization is, just like they really have their data. But the problem with insurance is, unfortunately, man, as you know, you're probably the only person right now that I can think of that probably is going to figure this out, and you're working on this. It's extremely difficult for a lot of agents to literally tell me what's their email response for their team, what the ticket task, like how long did it, like because a lot of those technologies right now in our industry, honestly, well, a year ago, 2 years, it did not exist. Like people like CJ would have to like go be creative and find those things, get it from other industries, and then implement it inside of insurance to be able to, because like a lot of carriers would have those, I would say, in the past. But like a lot of agency owners, like they just don't, and they still don't think it even exists. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely correct. And think about it like from this perspective. If you know your numbers, right, you can break down to the point, especially on the service side, right? Like you can break down into how much does it cost every time the phone rings,
100%.
right? Like what does that look like? And then you get into conversations like, hey, CJ, should I invest in a mobile app for my agency? I don't know. Let's do the numbers. And you can back into that and say, okay, well, this mobile app is going to reduce my, inbound phone calls by 5%, and it costs X amount. And I can back that in and know, hey, every time the phone rings, it costs me this much money. Where's the break even, right? But if you don't know those numbers, you're just guessing. 100%. You're like, sure, sounds good. Yeah. And so what that allows us to do is to make profitable decisions based off of the data, not off of my gut. And that's I think that's the real differentiator between
100%
me and a lot of other agents.
I think of your agency as like you are progressive. You're literally like progressive, and a lot of people, a lot of agencies don't like you because you're way over their head. But it's okay because you keep making money. Like you know how to make money.
Here's the thing: like you actually kind of led into this a second ago. If you're looking at like technology within the insurance space that's specifically for the insurance space, and you see something, there is nothing cutting edge in the insurance space. And what I mean by that is like insurance, like we're in this tunnel that we're looking and we're like, oh, these tech things are so cool. But if you look outside into other industries, this stuff exists everywhere, right?
20 years ago.
Insurance is just lagging. So for me, like when you start looking at the tech stuff, you really, you want to look at what's made for the industry, but looking outside of it a little bit can really broaden your horizons on, oh, this is the world is a lot bigger than I thought it was.
100%. 100%, man. 100%. So my question to you is for your virtual people, man, the producers that you have right now, or producers that are coming in-house, I'm assuming you obviously have producers. First of all, how is the lead flow? Do you have a lot of like in-house agents that like lead comes to them? Do you have some that are outbound calling? Like what's that dynamic look like?
So I have no one in my office that outbound dials.
Okay.
I don't. That's just never been a thing that we had to do. A lot of our lead flow is from our agency website. We spent a ton of time building that out. A lot of SEO there. We do a lot with Facebook ads and Facebook groups, and that pushes leads in. And so we have this lead flow that comes in from there. And I call it my inside sales team and my outside sales team. My inside sales team works those leads that come in through our channels, and then they also build their own referral sources on whatever that is. Maybe it's mortgage lenders or networking group or whatever. So they've got both of those sets of leads coming in. My outside producers, those are ones that are more commission-based people that are generating all of their own stuff. So we pay them, a bigger percentage of the commission for that, but they don't get any of the inside stuff.
Yep. So they have to go. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the inside sales people.
Sure.
Do you by chance know how long it takes one of your inside, and you probably obviously know this, inside sales people, how long does it take them to do a quote from start to finish when the consumer gave them their information? What's that timeline look like for you guys?
Yeah. So I, full disclosure, depends on what it is.
Yep.
I don't. Yeah. So one thing that our agency has never like leveraged or really that notion of like, hey, I'm going to sell to you on the phone right now. Like I know that there's agencies that works really well for. That's not us. the way that we operate is that, or kind of the message that we're sending to the customer is, hey, we feel like you deserve a little bit more of our attention than 15 minutes. Like we want to go through, we want to look at stuff. And so from the time somebody contacts us, so maybe it's on our website, maybe they call in, whatever, the process is the same. We use a inbound, lead system, or essentially a data collection system that they go through, they fill it out. That bridges into our rater, which then bridges into the carriers, which allows us to finalize quotes. If I was going to push it, like if I really wanted to be like, hey, let's see how fast you can do this. From the time somebody completed their information on our website to the time that I could provide them PDF quotes from a carrier, 6 minutes, probably 7 minutes. It's very, very quick, very, very easy. But we typically don't do it that way. We take a little bit more time. Our agency standard is this, and this has never kept us from selling insurance, right? The big thing where people I think they miss the speed thing, is that they think that they have to be like right this second selling stuff. And I don't really subscribe to that. Like I believe that like speed is important, but I think communication is the bigger thing. So like as long as you're communicating with that customer, I don't care if it takes a day to get them their quote, as long as they understand that you're working on it. The reality of the matter is too, my agency, the demographic we target, are not going to be people that are going to buy on that first phone call anyway. We're going to have to go through some stuff. At least I would hope that they wouldn't, because I want to make sure we go through some stuff with them there. But our agency standard is this. We divide the day in half, AM and PM, before lunch, after lunch. If a lead comes in before lunch, they're required to have the quote in their inbox after lunch. If a lead comes in after lunch, they have to have it before lunch next day. But it's not because we couldn't do it faster if we wanted to. That's just how our process is.
Yeah. So talk to me about the sales cycle, dude. So
Sure.
somebody calls in, you take their information. So you build a relationship right there, and then set up a time to call them again when you have all the quotes done. Do you send them to Canopy Connect? Like, what's that look like when a person calls?
Yes. So we use Salt. That's our lead intake system.
Perfect.
If somebody calls in, we are taking that information right there on the phone. Hey, we're running through it. We're inputting all of that into Salt. And then once we've completed that conversation, our words with them are, hey, we are going to work up some quotes, and I'm going to send them to you via email, and then I'm going to follow with you and see what questions you have. And so essentially, let's just use that example. They called in this morning. We went through, we got all their stuff. We got their quotes generated. We'll send them out. Everything is templated on that side of the ball. So, if it's a Progressive Home and Auto, we've got this template that goes out with it. And then we will follow up the next day and ask them, like, literally just, hey, do you have any questions? And 90% of the time, people will respond to that email, and we'll get a good gauge of where we're at.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm ready. A lot of them will just be like, yeah, it looks good. Let's go with it. Some of them will give us, hey, I got some questions. Can you call me? And then, if people start ghosting us at that point, we sick our automation on them. And then, and it just goes from there. But that's kind of like if you called in for a quote today, that is exactly the experience you would get regardless of who you talk to.
Yeah. And remember, everybody listening, like this is an agency that they get a lot of warm leads, right? Like, so those leads that are coming in, like CJ, if you don't follow CJ on social media, like his social media is probably one of the best I've seen in the insurance industry when it comes to just educating clients. Like, this dude is not selling insurance. Like, that's the one. A lot of people that are like, oh, like, have you, like CJ puts a lot of stuff, but everything that he puts in there, man, is never like, oh, I'm going to close your business, blah, blah, blah. It's all about education. And here's the beauty, dude. It works better than being a salesperson. When you're educating somebody, you become the trusted person. Guess who they're going to call when the time comes? Like, of course you.
100%. And that's exactly, trying to educate that customer. I also feel like this, and this is something that I think is missed in the industry. Right now we've got crazy rate increases, right? There's increases are happening all over the place. For those agents out there that didn't educate their customer about why they bought the policy they bought, in the absence of value becomes price is the only thing left, right? And so they start price shopping, and maybe you do, maybe you don't get beat there. But for me, I think it's super, super important that we are educating those customers along that life cycle to remind them of why they purchased this particular policy. I'll give you an example. We have a carrier, probably a lot of people on this phone call have them, that took in Tennessee, like, God, it's 49% rate increase or something like that. I mean, just crazy jumps. But their policies are loaded. So there's a lot of value in them. And so we have this email template that we came up with that literally, when the customer will, they balk at the price every time. Hey, price went up, blah, blah, blah. We send them this back, and it's like, okay, absolutely, that's crazy. We can't believe it went up. Here are like 6 features that are on this policy that you really can't get anywhere else. Tell me which one of these you no longer want us to give you. And almost 100% of the time, the answer is, well, I don't want to miss any of those. Okay, cool. Well, that's great. This is the only carrier that's going to give you all of them. So what's the, what do you want to do? And then it's usually, okay, well, we'll just stay where we're at for now. We'll look at it again next time, right? But what we've done is by reminding them of all the features, even if they're shopping us, right? Hey, we're telling them, hey, this has guaranteed replacement. Hey, it's got unlimited water backup. It's got this, it's got this, it's got this. Make sure you ask these questions. When they're quoting it out with other agents, now they're educated again, right? They remember now, hey, I've got all these features. So when they're price shopping me and they start talking to a less educated agent and they're going, hey, what's guaranteed replacement cost? Does it have this? Well, no, our quote doesn't have this. It doesn't have that. It doesn't. And it takes the focus off the price and puts it more on value.
Dude, that's huge. That's huge, especially with what's happening, man, with tornadoes and hails and fires and all the stuff that's happening, flooding that's happening right now, man. More than ever, consumers are like, hey, I want better coverage. Like honestly, everybody's calling us. People that have not been affected with the storms here in Nebraska are calling us and saying, hey, can your agents take a look at our policy just to make sure we have enough coverage? Because I was told by my neighbor that their replacement cost on their home was 30% less than what it should. Because at the time when they bought the house, they were complaining, oh, I will never have that much stuff, or my house will never be worth that much.
Never
and now they're all like, hey, let's take a look at it. So honestly, man, I take this whole storm season that's been happening with us as a blessing, because we're seen as a lot of people are more educated. I feel like we're needed more than ever. Insurance people in the world, in the industry, at least our industry is upfront. Everybody's talking about it. Talking about it, good or bad, is good.
All press is good press.
Exactly. Does it really? That's awesome, man. So CJ, personal side, man. You're obviously, man, doing some amazing things for the industry, man. There's many different things. I mean, we could go through all of them, but we would be here all day. But you're one of the pillars of our industry, man. Doing some things that are pretty awesome as a younger agent coming in and making a difference. So you're all these speaking gigs. You're hanging out with the right people. You're doing the right things, right? So what do you recommend for somebody that's in the industry? Maybe they're 25 to 30 years old. They kind of have they're sharp. They're going to potentially be the next CJ, maybe. Like what are some things, looking back 5-10 years from now, these agents should be doing to set themselves up, whether it's to have their own agency, whether it's to be successful in the industry for a very long time? What are some things that you would say to them? Hey, do these things because it's going to pay off?
Yeah. So I think that the very first thing is comparison is the thief of joy, right? So the first thing that, within the space is when you first get in, you want to compare all right, I'm selling this much and this guy's selling this much. I must suck because this guy sells more than me, right? And I'll give you guys an example. There was a Facebook ad from a guru, and I'm throwing quotes up for people just listening to this, that was talking about how, buy my course and I'll teach you the ways that I sold $1 million in personal lines premium in a year, right? And he's trying to sell this course. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, dang, $1 million in personal lines, that's moving it. But if you dive into it further, all right, in Tennessee, the average homeowner's premium is $1,400. Right? And this guy was in Florida. He's in Florida. I'm like, bro, every policy you sell is $15,000. We're not even comparing the same things here. So that's the first thing is don't compare yourself to others in the industry. Figure out what you and your family, what is good for us, and stay in that lane. And I think the other big thing is, you have to learn as much as you can about the policies that you sell. So when I started in the industry, I think the best thing that I ever did was I used to collect policies. What I mean by that is I would actually, like, if I wrote somebody's insurance and they were with State Farm, I'd be like, hey, can you give me your State Farm like packet? I want the packet of it. And I literally had a binder. That's how long I've been in the business, man. I got a binder with them little clear sheets in it, and I'm sticking them things down in there. And I read every one of them cover to cover. And so what that ended up letting me do is, like, I started learning like these nuances between the policies. And what's going to happen is, especially if you're real young, 20, 21, 22, your age can actually be a problem, right? Because sometimes people see you and they see the youth and they're like, okay, so you have to wow them in another way. And so I would wow them in, hey, I can quote policy language like I'm preaching, like I got scripture here, man. I can tell you, what comes in State Farm chapter 4, verse 3. We'll go through it. And what that enabled me to do is, when I'm able to rattle off this stuff about their policies that they have currently, and then they go back and question me against their agent might not even know the answer, which is a lot of the times what happens, which gives me instant credibility, even though I'm
100%.
And so I think that, to me, like, educating yourself, not just on like the sales stuff. Like, if you're a good agent that is providing quality advice to people, the sales will come, man. Like, that stuff will happen. You don't have to, it may not happen as fast as you want it to, but it will happen. The big thing for me is, like, just making sure that you have gone in, like, read the policies that you're selling, understand, the nuances of them, and then how that compares to the nuances of the other, competing companies in your market. And that'll help you a ton.
100%. Personal side, man. So you got a lot going on, obviously. What's that? What else is CJ doing when he is not doing insurance stuff?
So mostly just insurance stuff.
Yeah.
Trying not to think about insurance stuff. That's so my wife and I have a farm here in Tennessee. My wife does rodeo.
Cool.
So I spend a lot of time in that world. Spend a lot of time on a bush hog listening to insurance podcasts. But no, as far as personally, like, that's one of the things I enjoy is spend time with my wife doing the rodeo stuff. But one thing about insurance, and this is, for the younger people, there's no middle in insurance. You love it or you hate it, the end. And if you're on that side of like, hey, I hate it, but I think if I stay in it long enough, I'll get to love it, you're kidding yourself, and you're ultimately setting yourself behind. You just need to get out, right? You love it or you hate it. And so for me, I love it. So, like, listening to podcasts about insurance is something I love to do. So it's not that's not work to me. That's leisure. So unfortunately, I get I'm probably a little too into it sometimes. But
that's awesome.
But for the most part, that's what I do in my spare time. And then I build tech. I like to play with tech too. That's kind of my not my background, but my side hustles. If you will.
We're gonna have to have another episode and dive into this stuff on the tech side, man, because I know you got a lot of stuff in your organization. That's been super incredible, man. And so, if you had to pick a non-negotiable for win today, so for me, for example, like, for some people it's just working out in the morning. For some people it's, hey, I got to do certain things during the day. For some people it's just like, hey, I got to give my wife a kiss goodnight, man, to win my day. Like, when you put your head on the pillow, man, if you would have done this thing, you would have considered that day one. What do you think that would be on the personal or business side?
Having one positive effect on somebody's life per day, like whatever it is. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, if it's something minor or something major. Like, just having one piece of positivity you're putting out into the universe. That's kind of how I always gauge it. And that's a low bar, but I think if everybody was hitting that bar, we'd have a lot better world. Damn.
That's incredible, man. Dude, you're gonna be one of the greats, man, of our industry. So my question to you is, this will be the last question. I've never asked this question from anybody. What is your definition of greatness?
Ooh, dude, that's a great question. I feel like, you mean like, if I'm looking at it from like an insurance perspective, or even a business, right? Let's just think about it from a business standpoint. Like, for me, like I told you, I have a lot of young agents.
Mhm.
Like, so for me, one of the things that like I consider like greatness is people that build businesses that allow people that work there to have the lives that they deserve, right? And so, like for me, like that's kind of where my mind is on greatness is like is building a company that all the people that work for the company have the lives that they've always wanted to have.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think I put it in there. I don't know if that's really a definition, more of like a model, but that's kind of where my head is at on it. It's like, how can we build something together that makes everybody involved with it, better? A rising tide lifts all ships. Like that's kind of the thought.
That's a mic drop, fellas. That's it for us. CJ, appreciate you, man. We'll definitely have you on again. Thank you so much for being on. Everybody else, man, make it a good day.